All right, my good people, y'all come on in. Come on in. Hold on 1 second. I got to do something real quick. There we go. All right, there we go. We should be good. We should be good. I attempted to do a live earlier today and had some. I'm telling you, man, the devil don't want me to get this information out. I'm just going to blame it on the devil. That's I'm just going to blame it on the devil. But I'm coming back late tonight to redo the live that I started earlier today. Many of you, if so, only way you would have seen it unless you was on with me live. You wasn't able to see it. Other than that, however, we're gonna go ahead and jump into things. We're just gonna go ahead and do everything over today. So we're gonna just start fresh. If you stayed up anticipating the State of a Union address from Trump, and you were hoping that he was going to talk about crypto, well, that was a nothing burger. He did not say anything about crypto leadership, America, taking the lead in the world for crypto, nothing about crypto. Some interesting points he made on the tariffs. He talked about that. He was displeased with the judges that ruled against that approved that anti-tariff thing. He talked about that. He had a funny, a very funny thing with Nancy Pelosi when he talked about insider trading. That was kind of funny. But other than that, it didn't have anything to do with crypto. So that's what I was really hoping to hear. Didn't hear anything about that. So anyway, other news, we move on. We move on. We are going to continue the conversation that we had earlier today when we were talking, not earlier today, well, yeah, earlier today, but from a previous video I did, talking about the Holy Grail for XRP, the Holy Grail for XRP holders. And we talked about how that Holy Grail is your ability to put your tokens, lock them up in the liquidity pool, and understanding that this liquidity pool is for institutional usage. It will be utilized in capital credit markets, people. Capital credit markets, institutional credit markets. And these institutions will be going to the XRP ledger to borrow XRP. And when they pay it back, they have to pay back additional XRP. And that's XRP that's going to be dispersed amongst the people who lent their XRP to the pool. And today, in this live, I want you to understand some specifics about this amendment that is going to bring this protocol to the XRP ledger. That's the purpose of this live, to understand some of the details, okay? Now, the very first detail you need to understand, because I get a lot of questions about this, and I didn't cover this in the last video. What you do need to understand is this is not live yet, okay? This amendment is already in the voting stage. The voting stage started on January 28th, I believe. And yeah, it started on January 28th. We have 34 validators total, and we need 80% approval. So I think that's about 26, 27. I believe 27 that we're going to need for 80% approval. And we're not there quite yet. I'll let you know exactly how close we are. But the validator voting just opened on January 28th, which is about, almost a month ago? Almost a month ago. It's about 3 weeks ago. Okay, about 3 weeks ago. So this is going to get approved. This is going to get approved. And when it does, you need to understand what it is so that you can make the best decision. Okay? Before I get into this, I want to say very quickly, the value of having XRP and earning yield in this protocol is, I can't state it enough. I can't state it enough. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine if there were some type of tokens that you could have that represented the usage of the internet. What would these tokens be valued back in the 1990s, early 2000s? Maybe not that much, right? What would those tokens be valued today if the value of these tokens were based on the usage of the internet? You think that value would have risen consistently from early 2000s to 2026? Of course it would. Of course it would have. What we have our hands on is something that is, you can say, is the internet of value. That is what Chris Larson has coined. That's the phrase Chris Larson coined, the internet of value. And XRP is the coin that is going to settle on the back end at the infrastructure layer for institutional use case of the entire global financial system, this internet of value. Having a coin like that is going to be tied to its usage and utility means one thing only. Higher demand is going to bring higher price. More scarcity is going to bring higher price. Those two things are going to happen together, higher demand and scarcity. It's going to be a revolving door that is going to just snowball the liquidity and snowball the value. The more it's used, the more volume ODL is going to have to do. The more it's used, the more XRP is going to cost for certain activities. That's going to bring XRP off exchanges. The demand will never, ever be threatened by the sell supply pressure from retail holders. Retail holders don't have enough. There's probably about half the retail holders that are probably going to sell their XRP. That cumulative is probably about a measly 2 billion. That's it. We're talking about demand levels in tens of billions. When we're talking about what it's going to require for XRP to function in its full use case. Notice I said in its full use case in a global adoption scenario. That's what it's all about. And we're going to get there. And if you understand global adoption and you understand XRP's role in global adoption, you understand the value is going to be there. Whatever that value is, it's coming, people. It's coming. So let's get into this. What are the details? The details. This amendment, this lending protocol is called XLS, excuse me, XLS 66D. That's the amendment, XLS 66D. And I'm reading from Grok here. I just simply said I want to talk about the lending protocol that's coming native to the XRP-L. And it said, yeah, the native lending protocol on the XRP ledger is one of the most exciting upgrades in the works right now. It's designed to bring structured protocol level credit directly to the chain. It's primarily driven by the XLS 66D amendment, often called XLS 66 or the lending protocol, which builds on XLS 65 for single asset vaults. This isn't your typical over-collateralized DeFi lending like on Ethereum. Instead, it's geared toward institutional and real-world use cases with these key features. Now, we're about to go over the key features of this lending protocol, but understand the important sentence is, unlike Ethereum, it's geared toward institutional and real-world use cases. That's the part you need to understand. It's about institutional use cases. Okay? So here are these features. Bullet point 1, uncollateralized fixed-term loans. Borrowers get fixed duration loans with preset interest rates. No on-chain collateral required for many cases. So when you have collateral that you have to put up for when you're borrowing, then that means you have to put up an additional amount of liquidity or an additional amount of capital in some other asset in order to borrow. Well, if these loans are uncollateralized, that's going to make it a lot easier for people to borrow, right? So that's great. Next bullet point, pooled liquidity via single asset vaults. Lenders or depositors pool assets like XRP or issued tokens such as RLUSD into vaults. These are managed by a loan broker tied to the vault owner account. So there will be loan brokers that are going to manage certain contracts off chain while we get all the speed and efficiency on chain, which is the next bullet point, off chain underwriting and risk management. Credit assessment happens traditionally off chain, which suits institutions that need proper KYC, credit checks, etc. On chain, it's just transparent execution and settlement. So off chain, they have everything that suits them to be a bank. KYC, AML. KYC is know your customer. AML, that's the money laundering. And so when you understand this is about institutions and how the rails are being set for institutions, you start to understand what it is you hold. You start to understand the value of what it is you hold. Value that the market doesn't see today. Value that is coming. Intrinsic value. The value that we had foresight to see because of our research. That hidden value that enables us to make a wise investment long term. Next bullet point. I love this one. Check this out. First loss capital protection. First loss capital protection. What is this? A buffer provided by the broker. What is it? What does it do? It absorbs initial defaults to protect depositors and lenders. It absorbs initial defaults. What are defaults? If somebody doesn't pay. So your investment is being protected. So all the lenders who are putting their XRP into this pool, it's protected by this first lost capital protection is going to absorb the initial defaults. That's great. That's awesome. Institutional focus. Think fixed rate, underwritten credit for things like cross-border funding, inventory financing, payout smoothing for payment providers, or market making liquidity. It enables yield for XRP holders by putting idle capital to work in regulated setups. You see this? This is how you put your XRP to work. But it's not just going to work in something like, on Kraken or, something like that where you can stake and stuff. No, this is real institutional markets. These are real institutional credit markets. Okay. I want to be in that game. I don't know about you. I want to be in that game. Now, I want to say as a side note, understand our legislation right now is debating and trying to come up with a compromise for this whole stablecoin yield thing, right? And what the agreement is so far is that what they're going to do is allow stablecoins to have rewards for usage, but they're not just going to allow people to just have stablecoins idly making yield. Okay, they're not just going to have stablecoins idly making yield. That's going to be for the banks. But what's going to stop somebody from, the government is not going to stop us from earning in a decentralized platform on the XRP ledger. They can't stop that. And they wouldn't even try. First of all, the XRP is not just sitting idly, it's being used in decentralized credit markets, institutional credit markets on a decentralized platform is what I'm trying to say. But because now we have all of the privacy coming, we have all of the permission domains coming. Now the setup is clear. The red carpet is being laid out for these banking institutions so that they can start actually using these things. So again, right now we're still waiting to get to that 80% threshold. I anticipate we'll get there sometime in the next few months in time for legislation to drop. Because this is why we're going to need this. This is why. Imagine XRP goes to $100, right? Let's say you're one of those people who has, let's say you got 100,000 tokens, right? Let's say you got 100,000 tokens. And now XRP done went to $100. Man, please, if you're not gaining yield off of that, don't tell me you're not going to sell some of them coins. Because now you got $10 million. $10 million. And you've been holding XRP all this time. And now you got 10 million. Don't tell me you ain't going to take out at least $1 million, right? Without earning yield, that's the only way we're going to be able to benefit is by selling some of it. It's the only way. And so if there's no yield, we have to have an exit strategy. I have a certain percentage of my bag for this price I think XRP is going to get to. I have another percentage of my bag for this higher price that I think XRP is going to get to, etc. But even down to your last bag that you're holding for that last price, let's say that was $1 million per coin, right? And let's say you still had 1,000 XRP left over to sell for when it got to $1 million per coin. And that's going to be an incredible amount of wealth. That's going to put you at 1 billion instantly. Boom. Well, you're done. You're out the game now. You're done. That's a lot of wealth, but you don't have any more XRP. And then XRP is going to go to $10 million per coin and eventually $100 million per coin. That, you understand my point? Listen, the point of this video is not exactly how high XRP is going to be. The point of the video is XRP, what I can say with surety, because of my research, do your own research. This is not financial advice. As long as time passes, XRP is going to get more and more and more and more and more valuable. Period. Now, I've already done the math and done the research on why I believe XRP is going to be worth crazy amounts, crazy numbers that most people would, on the surface, prejudge and say that's unrealistic. But I've done that math and I've done that research. So it is what it is. We'll see what happens one day. But the point is, why miss out on that? Why miss out on that? You should always want to hold XRP. Whatever you do, hold as much as you can for as long as you can. Because we don't have to sell XRP now. We have things like the lending protocol. There are the AMM pools, which I used to talk about a lot more in 2024. But we have ways where you can earn your yield and you can keep your XRP, keep that appreciating value into the long term. Because this is the type of asset that we've never seen before. Do you get that? We've never seen this before. We've never seen an asset where you can gain great yield off of while the asset itself continues to appreciate tremendously over time. Not like this. We've never seen an asset like that before. And you have an opportunity to participate in this utility market with XRP, a market where as time passes, the value goes up in the long term. When you zoom out and look at the XRP price chart every 10 years, I'm telling you, not even every 10, every 5 years, you're going to see the XRP price chart going up. That's already a fact today. That's already a fact today, especially 10 years. We did have that one stint in 2020 where XRP plummeted, right? Where it went from $3 high to like all the way down to 19 cents. But outside of that, we know that was manipulation. We all understand that. But outside of that, when we're talking about the utility, the usage, when we get into global adoption, utility season after the market structure bill, the Clarity Act is passed, and the rules are written, from that point on, every 5 years, XRP is going to be highly more valuable than where it was 5 years previously. And as long as you are living on this earth, as long as God is blessing your organs to function, as long as you have breath in your body, you want to hold XRP. All right? You want to hold XRP. All right, I'm going to rock with y'all in the comments for a little bit. Let's see. Do you think Bitcoin will fall off? You know, I'm not so adamant about Bitcoin falling off as I used to be. And this is why. There may be a use case for store of value. There may be a use case for that. If that's the only use case, is that people just want to store some value in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin can be wrapped and put on the XRP ledger. That's what I actually think is going to end up happening to Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is going to get wrapped and it's going to be issued on the XRP ledger. And so Bitcoin may not crash. But if it was only due to payments, then Bitcoin will not be used for payments, and Bitcoin will not be used for bridge liquidity. And so I used to think back in the day, because of that fact, that Bitcoin was going to crash. But it doesn't have to be used in that role. No coin is going to be used in that role. Only XRP's functions in that role. Other coins will have other roles, sub roles. The main role is one XRP is going to function at the infrastructure layer for liquidity, back-end settlement. But every other coin will have other sub roles. And as long as if Bitcoin has relevance, if Bitcoin keeps relevance as a store of value, some people may say a hedge against inflation or whatever, which any coin can be. It may not drop, but we'll see. It may not. We'll see what happens. Richard, you think only Bitcoin is safe? Why is that? Tell me. I'd love to understand your logic there. I love to discuss people who disagree with XRP. So if you have a disagreement, give me a coherent argument so we can discuss it. Cookie, you think Bitcoin's going to crash? What I'm looking forward to seeing is XRP decoupling from Bitcoin and how the price moves. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing. Because what I do think could possibly happen is there's like this, all the cryptos are just going down, going down, going down. Then all of a sudden, while the cryptos are going down, XRP starts coming up. But all the other cryptos are still going down. I think something like that could happen. I want to see the actual decoupling of XRP itself from the entire market. Right now, for the most part, everything just pretty much goes up and down together, But there's coming a day where the utility tokens are going to perform the best. And it's going to be clear which tokens are being used and which ones aren't. Yeah, I talked about the State of the Union when I first opened up the live today. I saw the State of the Union. Donald Trump did not say anything about crypto. So that's all I was really looking for. Legal says XRP will be global reserve currency. It will be bridge of all the currency movement across the globe. That is what my research says. And I want to offer a challenge to the people in the room who disagree with my content, but for whatever reason, you want to watch. I welcome you to watch. But on this channel, we talk facts and we can support our facts. There's not anything on here that I can't support with information and where I got it from. And so if you disagree with me, I welcome your disagreement. That's what dialogue is for. But I challenge you, if you disagree, to actually type something, actually type an argument that negates something that I said. Type an argument. Tell me why something specific I said is not true or not factual or incorrect. Or maybe I got it wrong because consider this factor. You didn't consider this factor, XYZ. Give me something. Okay? Give me something. But if you haven't researched what I've researched and you in your mind, you want to just disagree. I mean, yeah, you can do that. But the intelligent thing to do is say, let me research what he's saying. And then let me see. Some of y'all are just making up your mind that you disagree, but you have not read into what I've said. Intelligent people, when they hear ideas that they haven't heard of, they don't just dismiss it. They look into it. And then after they look into it, they make the decision, oh, that's BS. Oh, no, this really has something to it. Or, I see what he's saying, but he's wrong on this part, but this is what it really is. That's how you make up your own mind. But it has to start with you reading. It has to start with you doing your own research. And that's what most people do not do. People are good at dismissing things. People are good at shouting insults. But people don't want to do any real work. People don't want to read. People don't want to research. So I say the things that I say because they're backed by something that I've read. So there's just certain things that unread people can't tell me. But you can, but if I'm wrong on something, because I'm not perfect, if I'm wrong on something, correct me, but do it with a coherent argument. Do it with a coherent argument. Yeah, man. CPT Snoopy. I wasn't surprised either. Usually when we're trying to anticipate, what's going to be talked about, it usually is a nothing burger. But I was hopeful that this was going to be something interesting to listen to. But oh well, it doesn't change anything. You know what I'm saying? Legal says it will decouple after reserve carry trade unwind or BlackRock ETF. That's very possible. That's the use case that could come into XRP. That's very possible. Japan is offering rewards now. I got to look into it to get the details. But they are offering XRP rewards for one of their coins that I think that they're doing. Oh, it's their bonds. That's right. It's their bonds. Japanese bonds. When you buy Japanese bonds, you get XRP rewards for buying Japanese bonds. So that has everything to do with the reverse carry trade. Imagine that. I'm probably gonna report on that on a video tomorrow. But yeah, that was very interesting to read. Japanese bonds are about to pay XRP rewards for buying the bonds. So the more bonds that are bought back, the more XRP has to go to that, right? So that's a direct effect on XRP. That is direct demand for XRP. So as this reverse carry trade unwinds, not only could XRP be used as bridge liquidity, but XRP will also be used, not could, will also be used as a reward system where they're tacking on more XRP to holders for the people buying up the bonds. That's pretty bullish. His name was King. They have no argument, only statements and insults. Facts, right? But I wouldn't have people on here to insult me if I only had 10 followers, right? So when people do that, I just take it as a compliment. I'm trying to stay in the light. You think Bitcoin is going to die when true utility takes over? Like I said, it's going to depend on if people still feel that holding that store of value is going to be relevant. And if they do, it could, survive. And again, if people want it to survive, it will. If it's all about the mindset, because it rolls again on speculation, right? So that speculation could stay, but it's also very probable that it may not. I wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin crashed. I wouldn't be, because XRP is also a store of value, and everything else it does, right? So it's like, why do we really need Bitcoin? Right? What does Bitcoin do that XRP can't do, or these other coins? But you have so much more benefits with holding something like XRP. Bitcoin doesn't have a native lending protocol ledger on the blockchain where you can store your Bitcoin in a lending pool and earn rewards because of real, institutional credit markets. Bitcoin don't have that. you know. So now we're finally getting a place, an atmosphere where we can actually put our coins to work. And we're going to need that when that price starts going up so that we don't have to sell our coins. We're going to need that so we won't have to sell our coins. We got a price prediction by Legal T4JW. He says XRP will be $100,000 USD per coin by 2030. I'm going to be honest with you, Legal. I think that's conservative. I think that's conservative. I used to think that back in, I'd say about 2023, I think my mindset was, by 2030, man, yeah, $100,000. Now, man, ooh, I think XRP is going to be so crazily high. It makes me sound silly when I talk about it. I get it. I get it. I get it. You bought XRP with VPN during SEC tie-up. Yeah, because you had to change your VPN if you were depending on what exchange you were using, because United States wasn't allowing people to buy XRP at one point. So there was Uphold, and there was, I think, one more exchange where you could buy XRP. And so a lot of people, if you wanted XRP, it was like, how do I get it, right? But if you used an exchange that in the United States they weren't allowing U.S. citizens, and you changed your VPN to another country, then you could get it. Monica Long said full-scale adoption this year. I guess if full-scale adoption, price of XRP can go to 2,000 to 5,000 per coin by end of 2026. Ooh, man. Sure, it's possible. If you're asking what's possible, yes, it's possible. Here's what's going to happen with the price, people. Just in case you haven't heard. Just in case you haven't heard. Let me explain the logic behind an extreme price XRP. This is the math. The math is the math all day long. Don't argue with me about the math, okay? You can argue with me about the variables, and will variable A really be variable A, and will variable B really be variable B? We can have that conversation. But what I'm about to tell you is if variable A and if variable B, then C will be the price. Period. End of story. If the two variables are what they are, mathematically C will be the price. What's variable A? Variable A is the amount of on-demand liquidity volume daily on the XRP ledger. That's variable A. Very sweet, very understandable. In a global adoption scenario, how much on-demand liquidity volume do you think there will be a day? I think it's very reasonable that it will be trillions per day. That's reasonable. Even if you want to say some single-digit trillion number like 5 trillion a day. In a global adoption scenario, give it some time. We're going to get to 5 trillion a day on the on-demand liquidity in volume every day. We're going to get there. Who wants to argue me that that's going to be reasonable or not right now? That one factor, that one variable. Anybody? Anybody? The derivatives market as a whole is man, let me not go there. I don't want to get on a rabbit trail. Let's just say on-demand liquidity volume. Stick with that. Now, that's variable A. Variable B is how much XRP is in the market, the public exchange, because the on-demand liquidity volume must source liquidity from the public exchanges. That's the only place it sources liquidity from. It doesn't source liquidity from the escrow. It doesn't source liquidity from the XRP that's held in institutional wallets. It doesn't source liquidity from the XRP held in my wallet, your wallet. It can't source liquidity from XRP that's locked up in vaults all over the place. It can only source liquidity from the public XRP available in the open market. That's tradable, free floating. That's the only place it can get it from. The XRP ledger was designed to demand settlement from whatever XRP is there. So the more tokens are there, the less the price needs to be. The less tokens that are there, the more price that will need to be to handle the same volume. If the volume is consistent on ODL, let's cap the ODL volume at some consistent number, some fixed number. The more coins in the supply on the exchanges, not the circulating supply, just the supply of exchanges. The more coins in the exchanges, the less the coins have to be to meet that liquidity demand. The less coins in the exchanges, the more valuable each coin has to be to meet that demand. Does that make sense? So the second variable is how much XRP is in exchanges. I am telling everybody that XRP is going to be very scarce in exchanges. Public exchanges will not have billions of XRP in a global adoption scenario. We only have 1.6 billion now. If you look at the metrics from Ripple's market reports, it shows us clearly how XRP has traveled. It's leaving Ripple to the institutions, and it's not going to the market. That means institutions are holding it. Institutions never had more than 4 billion XRP at one time. Institutions have held about a little more than 40 billion XRP that they got from Ripple. Ladies and gentlemen, The XRP that's there now is only 1.6 billion out of a total 100 billion supply. It's already small, less than 2% available. We haven't got to global adoption yet. During global adoption, the demand of XRP, the requirement is going to cost way more than 1.6 billion. It's going to cost more than what's there. The demand is already higher than the supply. I'm talking about the coming demand once the global adoption starts. It's already higher than the supply. How do I know? One metric you got to look at. I've done a video weeks ago talking about these things. 4 macro factors that are going to cause XRP to be extremely scarce. Here's one of them. This is just one of the 4. The global tokenization of assets is going to cost so much XRP. Understand, every bank, every payment provider who wants to tokenize an asset and issue that asset to customers, it is going to require trust lines for the customers to engage with these digital assets, these tokenized assets. We're talking about stable coins. We're talking about tokenized everything of value. Bonds, treasuries, all these things that are tokenized. And it's on the XRP ledger. The trust lines cost XRP. There's going to be 100 billion trust lines. Every person on the globe will have 15 to 20 trust lines apiece in a global adoption scenario. That's the world we're headed to, people. There will be 100 billion trust lines on the globe, which will cost 20 billion XRP. Where's that XRP going to come from when there's only 1.6 on the market? The institutions don't have enough. The cost for the tokenization of assets is going to cost 20 billion XRP. That means institutions need more. Where are they going to get it? From Ripple? Ripple can only sell 1 billion a month. In a global adoption scenario, they'll quickly sell out that billion, and then they'll have to go to the exchanges to get their XRP. And one day, Ripple's going to sell out that escrow. Those non-disclosure agreements, we don't even know how much of the 30 billion Ripple has in escrow, how much of that they can actually sell because of those 1,700 non-disclosure agreements. I'm sure out of 1,700, that's a lot of XRP that's already allocated. Pretty soon that escrow is going to be gone, people. And any XRP that's needed is going to have to come from exchanges. And the more that we grow and adopt the tokenization of assets, the more XRP is going to require, and it's going to have to come off the market. I just told you a demand for 20 billion XRP. There's only 1.6 billion on exchanges. What's going to happen when that demand starts replicating itself on the exchanges in the price and starts bringing XRP off the exchanges? The price is going to go up. Exchanges can't run down to 0. They'll never be at 0 XRP. The scarcity alone is going to bring the price up. But when you do the division, whatever's left in the exchanges, divide that into the daily on-demand liquidity volume. And what number do you get? You get the bare minimum price that XRP would have to be liquid enough to handle that volume. Now, let's throw in velocity, because velocity is important. All these XRP tokens can be used multiple times, right? So what we do is we throw in a reasonable velocity of 50. A reasonable velocity of 50. Even if you took it up to an unreasonable 200, you take the coins in the exchanges, you multiply it times the velocity, and then divide it into the on-demand liquidity volume. XRP is going to be so scarce, one day there will only be 100,000 tokens left. there will only be 100,000 tokens left one day. The demand far outweighs the supply. And as long as we continue to evolve in this space, the tokenization of assets is only going to cause this thing to grow and grow and grow, which is going to cost more and more XRP. Yes, we will be down to about 100,000 one day. Multiply 100,000 times, let's do 200 velocity, right? 200 velocity. So that's 20 million. What's 5 trillion divided by 20 million? Now, I can't do that math in my head. Somebody tell me. Somebody tell me what it is in the comments. Because that's the price of XRP mathematically. That's the price if variable A, if there's 5 trillion a day, ODL, and if